President Bola Ahmed Tinubu officially presented the 2025 national budget proposal to the National Assembly, setting the tone for what promises to be a decisive year for Nigeria's economy and development. The budget reflects key parameters, including an estimated oil price benchmark, projected oil production levels, exchange rate assumptions, and anticipated GDP growth. It further highlighted projected government expenditure, revenue targets, and the expected fiscal deficit. As Nigeria continues its economic recovery and development trajectory, the 2025 budget aims to strive a delicate balance between growth stimulation and fiscal discipline. What does this mean for the average Nigerian? And how feasible are these projections amidst global and domestic challenges? On Nigeria Today, to analyze the key highlights of the proposed budget, its revenue projections, expenditure priorities, and anticipated challenges, I'm joined by some experts to give us their perspectives on the budget. So join us to break down what this budget means for Nigeria's future. I'm Eucharia Clinton, and thanks for joining us on Nigeria Today. With me in the studio for this conversation is Honorable Dabo Ismail. He's a chairman, House Subcommittee on Protection of Critical National Assets. It's a pleasure having you in Nigeria today.
Thank you.
Joining us via Zoom is Farouk Abdullahi, a financial analyst. It's a pleasure to have you on the program, Farouk.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So I will start with you, Farouk. Share with us your perspective. What does this budget, mean for you?
Thank you, Ikeria. You see, as in the case of any other budget, whenever a budget is being proposed, what we first of all look at is the revenue projections in it, and as well the expenditure. And I've seen that it has been tagged as an ambitious budget by virtue of the increase in nominal value in the proposed budget compared to that of 2023, which is pegged at 34.82 trillion naira. And also, if you look at the expenditure, it's been also, the expenses or expenditure has been projected at around 47.960 trillion. So this, in terms of nominal value, appears a bit optimistic. But when we look at the intrinsic value of it, that is the actual value of the budget, I won't say it is optimistic in a way. If you look at our population growth level, you'd realize that this value is not ambitious in any way. Also, to me, if we also look at the figures alone, would get to realize that it depicts a healthy budget, because we have seen that 15.81 trillion naira is going for debt services, and the fiscal deficit is pegged at 13.08 trillion naira, which represents also a reduction in it. So the entire value represents 3.89% of our GDP. Our inflation figures also, if you look at it, I would say it is quite optimistic, pegging it at 15% from 34.6%. Just looking at the inflation figures alone, amongst the major drivers of our inflation figures in the country is food inflation. And we have seen that in 2023, food inflation has reached a peak of over 40%. This goes to tell us how that has been impacting on our inflationary figures in the country. But also in the budget, also, if you look at the critical, priority areas, I didn't see agriculture captured very much. 4.91 trillion goes to defense and security. It's important also to have address such security, in terms of, and I think this goes to the kinetic approach in addressing security issues. So if you look at the non-kinetic approach, which I feel agriculture is a critical area, is not being touched upon, squarely. So I expect to see after defense and security, after infrastructure, I expect to see among the third in the list should be agriculture, because we have seen the impact of agriculture in Nigeria. If you look at the past several years before we even got to get used to, oil, as an important, revenue source for the country, So this basically, also the health goes with 2.48%. That is pretty fair. And that of education also 3.52%. I believe a nation cannot grow over and above its level of education. So it's important that that also is.
Okay, thank you very much, Farouk. Now, to you, Honorable, I also want to get your perspective. I know you were there when the presentation was made. So talk to us about this budget of restoration, security. Of course, it was tagged budget of restoration and securing peace and rebuilding prosperity. Talk to us about this budget.
All right, thank you so much. Today, by the grace of God, we witnessed the budget presentation by His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. While this budget, we hope, with what we have seen in the budget, Nigerians will have a reason to pray for this administration, for the country. By the grace of God, if fully implemented, so many things will change. The budget will address the issue of inflation, which a lot of the bigger population of the country presently having serious economic challenges, issue of very high rate of cost of commodities in the country. So with this budget, by the grace of God, we hope it will address the issue of inflation that we're facing in Nigeria. Okay. And so many other sectors, like the education, the health sector, the security, and so on. So we have a serious hope if the budget is implemented.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the last budget. The implementation was, of course, shifted to next year. The implementation was moved from the end of this year to next year. Now, tell us, why was that, a little bit of shift, the extension of the timeline?
Okay, because of the period. The budget is supposed to end by this December. But because of the sensitivity of those items that are in the budget, 2024 budget, it has not been fully implemented. So it is always in our part of our responsibility as a parliament to look at the performance of the budget. If the budget is not 100% implemented, then we can decide to say we have extended the timeline of the budget so that the executive will have enough time to implement the budget. That was the reason for the extension to June 2025.
Sorry, I said the budget of last year was a little bit fast forwarding. I thought we were already in 2025, but 2024 budget, that was, this year's budget. Now, back to you, Farouk Abdullahi. You mentioned, you talked so much about, the breakdown of the budget. You talked about, agriculture and the rest of security and all of that. But again, one of the projections was that of the inflation. It's projected that the inflation will decline from 34.6 to 15%. From your analysis of what's been happening generally in the economy, how feasible is this?
Well, the feasibility of it is quite a contestable thing because it's something that you can look at it from various perspectives. If you look at the key determinants of inflation and you look at what the government is planning to do in terms of their fiscal plan, that is when you could say that it has tendencies of visibly achieving it or not. But to me, dropping from 34.6% to 15% is quite much of an ambitious thing, and it requires a lot of task for us to be able to achieve that. Just opposing. I think there was a time, I made a comment on how, exchange rate is affecting our inflationary figures. And, by experience and by historical data, we can all agree that exchange rate is correlated to our inflation figures in Nigeria. If we target to achieve 1,500 naira per $1 in 2025, and we expect also at the same time to achieve, 15% reduction in our inflationary figure, or let's say a reduction in our inflation figure to 15%. I think it is quite that much of an ambitious thing. So by the time you make the weighted average of all the factors that affect inflation, based on the projections, I think it is quite, ambitious to be able to achieve that. But that means that the government must have to ensure that they do the needful in terms of ensuring that they stand firm in their fiscal responsibilities, in ensuring that all of these things are efficiently and effectively achieved. But to be honest, it is, to me, I see it as a pretty much of an ambitious target. But I hope it will be in the best interest of every Nigerian to see that we get to achieve such targets. But we have to also be more realistic in our projections. We have to be more realistic in our estimations. I just made mention of food inflation, which is a key driver of our overall inflationary figures in the country. So what is the government doing in ensuring that food security is being prioritized? And that was why I was, in my initial comment, I was keenly interested in seeing that agriculture is being put among the priority areas, whereby the issue of food security would be squarely addressed, which we hope to see that it invariably, drops down the food inflation figure, which would eventually drop down the overall inflationary figures in the country.
Okay, we'll take a short break now. The conversation will continue after the break. Don't go away.
The implementation of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow under digital economy for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different? We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that our questions have been designed to to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today. Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today, and we're looking at the 2025 budget proposal. And of course, I have with me via Zoom and here in the studio two gentlemen. And back to you, Honorable. Talk to us. I know this is a budget proposal, of course, tagged budget of restoration. But again, we have the budget of 2024, which of course has been extended till last year. Tell us so far, how would you rate the implementation of this year's budget? And what are some of the highlights?
Is it the 2024 budget or the
2024 budget? No, of course, we've not started implementation.
The 2025
budget, yes.
Okay, the 2024 budget as it is now, I'm very sure the government have achieved more than 50% of implementation. And due to some economic challenges, you discover that a lot of Nigerians are still not seeing the impact of the budget. Nigerians are suffering because of the high rate of inflation. Things are so difficult for Nigerians, so they are expecting the government to go really deep down to touch those areas that affect their life directly. But when you look at infrastructure, improvement in terms of education and some other sectors, especially security, you will see improvement in terms of performance. But what Nigerians are still expecting, it's the way and manner government is handling the issue of high rate of inflation, that life is so difficult for them to be able to get something for themselves. So if, by the grace of God, I'm sure if the budget is 100% implemented from now to June next year, a lot of things will change for better, by the grace of God. So the 2024 budget is still in progress, and I can assure you that we in the Parliament were oversighting the executive very closely to ensure that they implement the budget based on the provision of the budget. So by the grace of God, we'll get there.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Abdullahi, of course, I know you mentioned some of the breakdown of the budget, talking about the defense and security, which of course is getting the highest, 4.91 trillion, the infrastructure 4.06 trillion. Now, what are we, or what do you think Nigerians are expecting from these budgets?
Well, Nigerians, after the results and outcome, as Honorable has rightly stated, the economic hardship is very obvious. And one thing we must recall is that, the two most critical policies that the government embarked on, we would say, in spite of how good the policies appears in economic terms, but in practical terms to the layman, it simply shows that these are some of the reasons that lead to most of these, economic challenges that we're facing. But I think it's something that the layman should understand, that is something that, relief would come, in no distant time. So if these two policies are what leads to the economic challenges, then we'll have to look at it from that perspective. What is entailed in this budget that addresses these critical areas of concern? Number one, the inflationary figures, which is also partly or greatly influenced by the policy as that pertains to the unification of the exchange rate. I think it is being contained, in the presidential speech where he stated, the benefits that is attributed to the oil sector in terms of not, demanding more money to import oil, in terms of also the reduction on the cost of oil production. And on the other hand, also there will be, relief in our exchange rates in terms of, the inflow of, the projected inflow of forex by virtue of the anticipated foreign portfolio investments that we expect in the country. And also, if we also look at another critical area of exportation of oil out of the country, these are things that would attract investment. These are things that we expect to strengthen our currency, on one aspect, and on the other aspect, as it pertains, to the removal of the fuel subsidy, we have seen government is also prioritizing investment in infrastructure, which...
Thank you very much. It's like we're having a little bit of a network hitch there. Now, back to you, Honorable. Of course, at the end of the day, people want to see results. That is what Nigeria wants.
Yes.
Now, what mechanisms are in place to ensure, accountability, transparency in the execution of this project, this budget, rather?
Well, first thing, we have received the budget now. Mm-hmm. The budget will be taken to the appropriate committee. That's appropriation committee. We will commence work immediately. We'll look at the budget. Our responsibility, constitutional responsibility, is to check and make the best budget for the nation. We'll look at areas where we need to amend to address current challenges of this country. We'll look at areas that we need to reduce. We'll make so many amendments in such a way that after implementation, or after we must have passed the budget, when the executive are implementing the budget, we want with immediate effect, Nigerians should begin to see the impact, the positive impact of the 2025 budget. Because of the hardship, we are fully aware of what Nigerians are going through, especially we in the National Assembly, members of the National Assembly and the senators. We are representatives of the people. We know what Nigerians are going through in terms of in terms of security, in terms of education, in terms of food security. People cannot fit well. People are facing a lot of challenges. So with this budget, we hope that the inflation rate will reduce, our exchange rate, Naira will appreciate against the dollar, then we'll have more production in the oil sector and so on. So by the grace of God, we'll look at the budget in the National Assembly, then various committees will work on it and will ensure speedy passage of the budget. After we must have passed the budget, then we'll begin to ask the executive, okay, what have you done with in terms of implementation? And then we carry out our oversight functions to ensure strict compliance without corruption-free, corrupt budget, so that Nigerians will be happy.
Thank you very much. Of course, that is what Nigerians are looking forward to.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll wrap up today's episode of Nigeria Today. A very big thank you to Honorable Dabo Ismail. He's the chairman of Subcommittee on Projection of Critical National Assets. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution.
Thank you.
And via Zoom, we had Farouk Abdullahi, is a financial analyst. Thank you so much, Farouk, for your time and your contribution.
Thank you, Ikeria.
And thank you for being part of the program. Remember, Nigeria Today airs every weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also check out this episode and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I'm Ikeria Clinton. Bye-bye.